In the previous video, we started working on the user interface of our Shopify app. We used Bootstrap to make our interface look like a card stack, and we used the product API and the product image API to get the products and its images from our store. Welcome back to another part of Advanced Shopify App Tutorial series. My name is Bernard, and in this tutorial, we're going to continue working on the product API. We'll be adding a modal window where merchants can customize or update the data of the product. In this modal as well, we're going to add a delete button and a confirmation window if they want to actually delete the product. Let's start by opening a products.php. Inside the products.php file, what we want to do first is to add a functionality or a feature where merchants can click on the card, and once they click the card, a modal or a window will pop up displaying a form which contains data of the product that the merchant has selected. To do that, we'll be using Bootstrap's modal component, but we're not going to create one modal for each card as it will cost a lot of work and it will be very hard to maintain. What we should do is to create one modal and point all of our cards to that one modal. When the merchant clicks on the card, the modal will pop up. And this is what's gonna make it more interesting. We'll be using AJAX to gather the information about the product and return it to our products.php and edit the values of the form inside our modal. That way, it will be much easier to maintain and it will make our app much lighter. So let's do that. Go to Bootstrap and navigate to the modal component and copy the snippet code underneath the live demo. Then paste the code just below the closing div tag and just remove the button tag since we don't really need that. Next, make sure that you change the ID of the modal from example modal to products modal with an S. And then change the ARIA label to products modal label, like so. Nice, now we have the modal. Now let's allow our merchants to activate this modal by going right over here inside our for each loop and add data toggle and data target attributes to our div with card class. Now if we save our script and try the app, we should be able to open the modal like so. Awesome. Now let's add some data inside our modal. Let's say we want to edit the name, the description, and the collection of the product. For that, we'll be using form. Right over here in the modal, right inside a div with modal body class, type form, and use action attribute and give it a value of AJAX.php. This is where we'll be writing the process for our AJAX, but for now, let's continue with the form. Inside the form, type div and give it a class of form group. Then inside this div, create a label tag and use for attribute and give it a value of product name. Between the label tags, just type in product title. Next, underneath the label, create another input type text, give it a class of form-control and an ID of product name. Next, copy the whole form group div and just paste it below itself and change the value of the for attribute to product description. And then the text for the label would be product description as well. Then instead of using input, we'll use text area and we'll give it an ID of product description. And then we'll just get rid of calls and give it a class of form control. And then after that, we'll just give it a row of 7. Just below the div, create another div with the same form group class and inside, create a select tag. Then give it a class of custom select. And then don't forget to give it an ID of product collection. Then we'll be using the multiple attributes so we can select one or more options from our select. Inside the select, create a few option tags just for testing. That way we will know if everything is working. If we save the script and try the app, we should have a form like this. And testing the select, we can select one or more options by holding Control button and selecting another option. We're doing this because in Shopify, you can actually assign products to one or more collections. Nice, now that we have the form ready, let's continue applying the product data into this form. To do that, we'll have to use AJAX. But before that, let's make everything clear first. We click on the card. The modal pops up with no data. To give it a data, we'll have to use an event that tells that, hey, we clicked on the card and we want its data to be displayed in front of us so we can edit it. There are many ways to do this. Number one is by using onClick event, and another one is by using the events provided by Bootstrap's modal component. both of which works fine. But if you want to create a loading animation or something, then I suggest using an onClick event. Then just use modal show function after the AJAX have returned the data. And that's what we're actually going to do. Use onClick function since we need to gather the data first before showing the modal. We don't want to get the data and show the modal at the same time because that is just really odd for users, right? So let's go back to our products.php file and just remove the data toggle and data target attributes and replace it with a custom attribute, and we're going to call that product ID. Then we'll give it a value of ID from our value variable. So just use PHP echo and then value and then ID. This way we can pass to our AJAX that, hey, I'm looking for the data of this product with an ID of, let's say, 5678. Because if we run the app, the card will have something like product ID attribute, which contains the ID of the product. Now, since it's a JavaScript, we'll have to code it after we reference the jQuery file. So open up your index.php file and right below the script tags, add another script tag, but we're not going to reference any file, but instead, we're going to write a code inside the script tag. We'll be using the div product ID selector and use onFunction and use click event. Inside the function, we'll just test if the event is working using an alert function. And for the argument, we'll just pass the value of product ID like so. So if we save the script and try the app, and there you go. As you can see, the alert function is telling us that this product has an ID of 5412236492959. Now that we have the product ID and the JavaScript working, we can start working using AJAX to get the data of the selected product. Create a new file, name it ajax.php. After the file is created, open it with your code editor. First, write the PHP tags, then use require once function and reference the functions.php and MySQL connect.php. Next, create a variable and name it ID and initialize it with the value from post and ID. Next, create another variable and name it shop_URL. And do the same, use the variable post, but instead of ID, use URL. Alright, just save the file for now and head back to index.php file. Right back here in the script, just above the onClick function, create a variable by typing var, give it a name of shop, and give it a value of shop URL using echo from PHP. Next, here in our onClick function, just remove the alert function and just replace it with an AJAX function like so. We'll be using method post, and we'll be passing data such as the URL and the product ID. Remember in our alert function minutes ago, we used this and attribute function? We'll be using that, but instead of displaying it, we'll be passing it in our ajax.php. So here we're just going to reference the ajax.php in the URL parameter. Then after everything is successfully processed, we'll just log it out in our console. Alright, this is not going to work yet. We have to update the jQuery since Bootstrap is only using the slim version, and I don't think that the slim version of jQuery is providing an AJAX function. So let's just remove the word slim from jQuery like so. And also don't forget to close your AJAX like the curly braces and the parentheses and semicolon, otherwise you're gonna have something like an expected token error. Alright, hit save and let's try the app. If you click the product card and go to your console, you should see that it creates an empty log. That means our AJAX is working. If we go to the network tab and look for the file ajax.php, we will see that the AJAX is passing the following value, URL and the product ID. Awesome, now let's head back to our ajax.php. Let's start by getting our access token using MySQL functions. Then, just below the token variable, we'll start using the product API to get the data for our selected product. The only difference is we'll use the following API endpoint and concatenate the ID like so. And we'll just create the variables such as title, the description, and collection. The collection variable will be an array since a product can have one or more collections. For the collection, we'll have to do 2 more API calls since you can't really extract the collection from product API itself. I mean, come on Shopify, why is this a thing? And with that, just create 2 more API calls with the following API endpoint, custom collection and smart collection. We will also have to pass the product ID as a parameter. If you're not sure about the API endpoint that we're using in this video, I'll put the link in the description. It will redirect you to the documentation of custom collection and smart collection. After that, we'll create two nested for each loops and use array push to give our collections variable the ID and the title of the collection. Once everything is set, we can just use echo to pass the data back to our AJAX. Now, since this is a JSON, we have to make sure that our AJAX understand that the response is a JSON format. So right underneath the URL, just type data type and give it a value of JSON. Now save your scripts and head back to Shopify app, and if you try to click the card, you should see in the console that you have received a set of data from AJAX. Nice. Now that we have the data from our AJAX, it's time to open the modal and apply these values to the form. Still inside the success state of AJAX, type $, product name, then use the val function and pass in the title from JSON variable. Next is just the same, just use the selector $, product description, then use val function and pass in the description. And lastly, the collections. Since our collection is an array, we'll have to loop through everything, so we'll have to use for each. So just type JSON, then angle brackets, and use collections. Then for each, create a function with an item parameter, and inside just use the selector for our select element and use the append function to create an option element. Just don't forget to give it a value and a text like so. And lastly, we have to display the modal once again. So just type the selector of our modal, $, products modal, then use the modal function and pass an argument of show. And once you save your script and refresh your app, you should be able to open the modal and see its form have a value like so. Awesome. And with this, we can finally start working on updating our products. Unfortunately, we'll have to end this right here. I apologize, but I don't want to make this video very long because editing this kind of videos takes a lot of my time, and yeah, I apologize for that. Anyway, in the next video, we'll continue working on this since there's still plenty of issues here, especially the collection selector. You should notice that the more you click on the cards, the more options you will have there since it just keeps appending the collections. But for now, we'll just leave it right here and continue it in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying this series, please don't hesitate to support us by clicking the like button. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.